Church and State, Part 2. Dare or Debate Daniel. It's interesting how Jesus tethers his first coming to the present rule of the Roman Empire. You might recall the statue of gold, silver, bronze, now the rule Jesus was born into, the two legs of iron, the beginning of both Eastern and Western Rome. As Jesus was known to come through Israel, Israel was to be kept separate, specifically to protect the bloodline through which the Messiah would be born. "4,000 years witnessed a history of keeping Israel as a nation safe and separate from the nations. God prepared a body, and Mary was the earthly carriage. Both Mary and Joseph were direct bloodlines of King David, the root of Jesse. Jesus was 100% God and 100% man. The birth arrived, but after the birth of Messiah, again after all the deceiver tried to do to eliminate Israel, he throws up a threat. All 2-year-old Jewish boys were to be slaughtered. Joseph was suddenly woken up in the night by an angel. They left immediately. Mary and Joseph fled to Egypt for safety. When Jesus was crucified, Satan, being the prince of the air, would retain his kingdom on earth. 3 days later, Jesus was victorious over death. Because of this, all men will be raised again. So Jesus arrived and blended his first coming with Roman idioms to describe his kingdom. The Jews awaited this coming. They knew that Israel would be ruled by Christ. They were right as per the prophecy, but they were premature with the times and seasons. Gently, Jesus said, "That is not for you to know, but God alone. At this time they saw him ascend, and in like manner he will return. Meanwhile, the kingdom of God is to be preached to the world. The physical reign of Christ on his throne is yet to come." How did God's people influence empires from within? Combining loyalty to authority with loyalty to God. We can start with Samuel. Just over 1,000 years before Christ, he was Israel's last judge and acted as both spiritual and national leader before the monarchy began. He anointed Saul as Israel's first king and later anointed David. He rebuked kings and mediated national crises, particularly in the transition from theocracy, God's rule, to monarchy, human rule. He was influential in the political transformation of Israel into a unified kingdom. Then we have King David, who was a warrior, a king, and a poet. He unified 12 tribes into a centralized monarchy with Jerusalem as the capital and established diplomatic and military dominance over neighboring nations, the Philistines, the Moabites, and Edomites. He instituted administrative reforms, including military organization and taxation. His covenant with God had theological political implications, promising a divine dynasty through which the Messiah would come. Solomon was David's son. He ruled as king, administrator, and builder. He oversaw a prosperous, internationalized kingdom, marked by trade, alliances, and wealth. This is a very political thing. He married foreign princesses for diplomatic alliances and built the temple in Jerusalem, a religious and political symbol of Israel's identity. He instituted heavy taxation and conscription, which eventually sowed seeds of civil unrest, leading to the kingdom's later division. Now we have Isaiah. From 740 BC, a prophet to kings, he served under the reigns of Uzziah, Jotham, Ahaz, and Hezekiah. He gave direct counsel to kings on foreign policy, particularly whether to form alliances Like he warned Ahaz not to trust Assyria, he advocated trust in God over political alliances and had court access. He was possibly of noble descent and was influential in national decision-making. Then Jeremiah as prophet during the fall of Judah. Josiah, Jehoiakim, and Zedekiah. He opposed rebellion against Babylon, urging submission to God's judgment. Then his stance made him accused of treason and imprisoned. He witnessed the Babylonian invasion and fall of Jerusalem. That was in 586 BC. His prophecies revealed a collision between faith and politics, showing how moral decline leads to national ruin. Nehemiah, now we're getting close in returning access to Jerusalem. He was a cupbearer to the Persian king, Artaxerxes, and governor of Judah. He began as a trusted royal official in Persia, a high political position. He was granted imperial authority to rebuild Jerusalem's walls, then became governor of Judea under Persian rule. He reformed taxation, restored justice, and enforced religious political law. He worked closely with Ezra to restore the covenant and national identity of the Jews. Now, most notably, Daniel. He lived between 605 and 530 BC. He was an administrator, a prophet, and a statesman. Being exiled to Babylon, he rose to become a chief administrator under Nebuchadnezzar, Belshazzar, Darius, and Cyrus. What a transition of cultures he needed to adapt to. He influenced imperial decrees in Daniel 2, 4, and 6, and interpreted dreams that shaped empire's policies. He stood firm on spiritual integrity while maintaining political authority. His role models how faithfulness can influence governments without compromise. Now, the book of Daniel was highly debated in the 18th century because Daniel 7 through to 11 describes a great detail of the rise and fall of empires. Babylon, Medo-Persia, Greece, and the Seleucid Ptolemaic conflicts. He just seemed to be too accurate. Archaeologists and linguistic evidence, the critics say the predictions are too precise to have been written before it happened, particularly the event of Antiochus Epiphanes, 175 to 164 BC. Therefore, they argued Daniel was written after these events, around 165 BC, as a pseudo-nominous work. Date of writings for 165 BC, Maccabean era, 530 BC, Babylonian exile. The Dead Sea Scrolls, Daniel's manuscripts, showed Daniel already copied and revered, meaning it must have existed earlier. That is precisely what prophets do. Critical skepticism view contains anachronisms, meaning it usually refers to something old-fashioned or antique, but it can also mean anything that blatantly clashes with the time in which it was seen. Darius the Mede, not known. Belshazzar, unknown. Until 19th century, history reliably details reflect Babylonian Persian court life accuracy. Discovery of the Nabonidus Silda confirms Belshazzar and Nabonidus's co-regent, exactly as Daniel describes in Daniel 5:29. Of course, this was in the 18th century. And in the 3rd century there was a question, but all has been debunked. Porphyry's criticism of Christianity was rooted in defense of traditional Hellenic and Roman religions. He was a supporter of paganism and believed in philosophical approach to traditional religion. Of the 2,500 prophecies in the book, 80% have already been fulfilled with 100% accuracy, and 20% remain. Jesus himself referred to Daniel the prophet, Matthew 24:15, affirming the ancient view that Daniel wrote it. Now, other Bible characters, such as Joseph, Moses, Joshua, Deborah, Esther, Mordecai, Ezra, John the Baptist, and of course Jesus of Nazareth, announcing his ecclesia. And then there's Paul the Apostle. All influenced the political environment.